Welcome to my top 20 of 2023. I had a lot of new viewers during the holidays, so I thought I would gather together some projects from earlier in the year that you may have missed. I did keep the original audio, so you will hear me refer to playlists and themes and things like that, but I made some new intros to help you keep track. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the video. Let's start the countdown with my favorite fall-themed craft, project number 20, Falling Leaves, original air date October 12th. Project number 1, Denim Falling Leaves. Yes, that's how we're showing autumn in this project with the leaves. I thought it would be really cool to use this denim that I had laying around. So I'm going to cut apart the two legs, separate them, and I'm going to set one to the side and not touch it, and then the other one I'm going to cut in half vertically or lengthwise. Now here I'm putting half of that pant leg in some bleach water. It's 1 cup of bleach, a bowl of water, but it just wasn't doing anything, so I put that outside because it was gassing us out, and I put 1/2 the pant leg in the grass and just poured straight bleach on it, and I finally got some results. So I got the other half pant leg and I did the same for it, rinsed it and set it aside to dry. Now I'm going to cut a dowel to hold the hanging leaves, and this is a Dollar Tree plunger, and I'm just cutting off the ends to make them the same, because one end had those screw marks and the other end was kind of rounded, and I want them both to be the same. And I will come in and sand the edges so we don't get any splinters. Now I did do a practice leaf. That's what you see there. I wanted to make sure that I didn't mess up on camera, so I tried it off camera first. So in the bottom left there, that's a macrame feather / leaf that I made, and I really like the shape of it. So that's the shape I'm going for in my leaf for this project. And I'm using the bleach denim here, and I'm just cutting random leaves. I did a wide trace of my practice leaf because it was kind of small, and I wanted it a little bit bigger, and I determined the size of the leaf according to the size of the dowel. This is the size that I thought looked best. And I have lots of extra leaves left over, so I may do another craft with these yet. I haven't decided, but I just cut these out randomly, and I don't show it, but I did cut out the darker denim as well, exact same way. And then I just kind of played around with the different leaves that I had until I was happy with the transition from the top to the bottom, and I'm showing you that practice leaf there. And I'm just going to paint some vines on. I started with a darker color for the darker denim, and then just lightened it up for the next 2 rows. And the final leaf there was almost all white. I really liked that happened to it. All right, now that I have those all finished, I put them back in the shape just to make sure I still liked it, and I really did. So I'm going to work on the 3 top leaves, but again, I do the same for all of them. I'm just going to show you the 3 top ones. And I thought it would be fun to put some fabric on the back, a nice little surprise if the leaves happen to get turned around, which they usually do in a wall hanging. And I just sort of cut it to shape of each leaf and used some matte Mod Podge to attach it. And this isn't fabric Mod Podge, but it works fine. So you do you, if you really want to use fabric Mod Podge on fabric, then go for it. But I didn't have any, and the regular Mod Podge work. Now I'm just cutting sort of like a fringe. I'm just cutting some straight lines on the sides, but also some V shapes. And that's going to help me pull off the little threads and make it look a little bit more rustic. And I also want to mention that I got the idea for this project from something I saw on Pinterest with feathers, and they did like the whole feather was a fringe. So I thought, well, I can do leaves, but you know, not as fringy. But I will put that link down below in my description box. For now, I have some twine. I'm just going to work on getting the 3 ones exactly the same. And I ended up having to hang it up to tie the twine on. And so I was happy with, it was more or less, you know, balanced, more or less straight. And it's okay that it's not perfectly straight because this does have a rustic nature. I faux dyed those beads there just by rubbing them with a baby white that I dipped in some burnt umber acrylic paint. And then once that was happened, they practically dry like right away. And I made a faux needle to help me thread the beads onto the twine. And this is for the hanging cord. If I was to do this again, I might make the hanging cord a little longer, but I'm still pretty happy with how it came out. And I like the balance between the beads on the hanging cord and the beads on the leaves. And I'm just going to clean it up a little bit here. I hot glued the twine from the middle leaf at the top to the twine from the bottom leaf. And I'll give you a good look at this during the final reveal. Project number 19, Blue Gather Pumpkin. Original air date, September 6th. Gather Standing Pumpkin. So I have this hanging wooden sign that I'm going to cut the word off of. I have a grateful pumpkin sign, which will be a gather pumpkin sign when I'm finished. And then I have this stand. It used to be like a geode pattern on it. And I have painted it black and put a coat of Mod Podge on it a long time ago. No idea what my plans for it were. But it's going to be glued to the pumpkin. So I don't have to worry about Jenga blocks or anything like that. So to start things off, we're just going to deconstruct here. A sad little raffia bow is being removed. A little bit of glue residue there. And then I thought I could reuse the blue if I could get up this grateful word, but not even the palette knife could do it. I had to take a razor knife, like a paint scraper knife, to get it started. And so it just removed so much paper, it wasn't worth it to keep trying to remove it. So I just decided to cover it with some old Dollar Tree vinyl that I had, and then to work on the back, which becomes the front. This old Dollar Tree vinyl was kind of thick, and it took me a while to sand the edges, because what I like to do is trim it and then sand the edges. But so worth it. Just, you know, take your time, and it eventually gets off like that, and it's such a nice finish. It's like it was meant to be. So I flipped it back over and wiped it down, and then I started in with that blue that I showed you at the very beginning of the video. I'm applying it not back to forth or up and down, but in a sort of curved motion to match the shape of the pumpkin. So curved on the edges more than in the middle. Sort of an up and down on the stem. And I didn't show you, but you might be able to see it in the bottom left corner. I picked out a darker blue to do like the indentations there. And I just sort of touched the dark blue with my paintbrush and then dabbed it again in the lighter blue to give it a more subtle outcome. And I did go back and dull it down a little bit, because I'm doing all this when the paint is wet. I just find it easier to glide the new color in. So it's actually very therapeutic, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'm taking, I forget what color this is. It's a chalk paint, and I'm just pressing the paintbrush at the edge of the blue and sort of flipping it up towards the top of the stem, like so. And it's going to be pretty covered up. So now I have a bunch of screenshots. And again, I'm sorry. I just have so much corrupted footage in this video. Basically remove the gather word from the other words in the little image there. And I made up my sort of peachy orange color with the yellow and orange. Or the yellow and coral, I'm sorry. Then I made some awareness shape bows, glued those down, made my little bouquets with the leaves there, and wired everything together and hot glued it. Then I just put some wood glue and a tiny bit of hot glue because I was running out of glue, and adhered the stand to the back of the pumpkin, and it looked so good like that. I started to turn it around to do a display shot and then realized I hadn't even put the gather word on, which you see here, and you'll get a couple more looks at it during the final review. Project number 18, Farmhouse Vibes. Original air date June 1st. Project number 1, Farmhouse Vibes. So I want to introduce you to my 10-inch miter saw I gifted myself. I do have a handheld one, but it's painful and time-consuming to use, so this is going to be a game changer for me. I'm going to show you how I make a bunch of house shapes, just like the Dollar Tree house shapes, but I don't think my wood is as good. This is just some scrap wood that I purchased at Habitat for Humanity Restore. I'm just making a few quick measurements, making some house shapes, and I'm just turning the saw to the 45-degree angle on the right and the left to get the roof shape on the house. I'm also saving the triangle shapes that are scrap from making the house shapes, and those are going to come in handy a little bit later, and I'll show you that. For now, I'm going to gather up my shapes, and I'm going to head back to my craft desk. So these are the 3 shapes I chose to do, and I made a few mistakes here, and I'll bring you through them. I painted them without sealing the wood first, so I ended up with the tannins leaching through. For now, though, I wanted to show you these Funsel acrylic markers. Funsel reached out to me because I introduced you to their colored markers, and you were able to choose them in different shapes. Now they have like black, white, gold, silver, where you get every size but in the one color. So they gave me some black markers, and they range in size from the jumbo tip at 15 millimeters to the extra fine at 1 millimeter. They would be great for doing like a gingham or buffalo chip pattern on stones or rock or even wood. They're working really great on this MDF here. I also used the 3 millimeter, 1 millimeter tip to do some stitching. So here I am back to the house shapes, and I realized the tannins are leaching into the white. So I actually ended up giving them 2 coats of Mod Podge, dry in between, and then I sprayed them with like a matte finishing spray before I came back to them. Oh, and I also give them another coat of white on top of the finishing spray. And now I'm going to do the letters. These are just some adhesive stencil letters that I purchased at Walmart. And if I had to do it again, I would get the letters F and A closer together. But I just, line them up the way the squares were for the stencils. So they're a little bit far apart, but they're okay. Now I have an essential stencil here that says Summer Vibes, but I'm just going to use the word vibes, and I'm going to put it on as low as I can. And the portion of the letter B is going to come up to the word house, but I kind of like it. So next mistake or error, if you will, I forget to do this a lot. Fuzz your stencils. Any adhesive stencil, please fuzz them, because I often forget and I'm usually okay, but such was not the case here. I'm just cutting them to size, you know, on the guidelines, and then putting them straight on. And even with all that Mod Podge and everything, I still ended up tearing up some of the paint. So I went in, I took one of my regular size squeegees and I cut it in half because I needed something smaller, and I only have one mini squeegee. So this is like right away. As soon as I squeegeed all four, I come back and it's not coming up. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to leave like pieces of plastic on here. And I just kept working and working on it, easing it up finally, but it was tearing out little specks of paint. It was actually leaving a tint of that teal color on the stencil. So you see, especially on that second one, a lot of paint came up. And I had one more part to do. It was the candle. It was a different color. And I fuzzed that first and had no trouble pulling up the stencil. So it took me a good while to correct the mistakes. So it's basically filling in where the paint pulled up, filling in where you see some of that teal color, and then coming back with the pencil marker and filling in the letters and giving them some cleaner lines. I did the weather vane there. I also did the little vines on top, even the word at the bottom. Just, and it was nice to be able to choose a 3mm or 1mm size marker, you know, without having to make do with whatever size you have. So here's the little triangle scrap pieces of wood, painting them black. They're going to be used to prop up the houses in the back. So to do that, first I have to glue all the houses together, and I used wood glue and a little bit of hot glue, and then used my laundry clips to hold them together, and it didn't take long. Then I made a bow using the awareness shape, cinching it in the middle and wrapping it with some twine, and I'm going to hot glue that on the top of the middle house. And I end up having to give a really good trim to those tails because I did not want to cover up the word farm. We worked really hard to get those words on there, so we don't want to cover them up. And I'm gluing those triangles on the back of the middle house and the side of the side house. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with both triangles, and I'll give you a better look of this whole project during the final reveal.
Project number 17, Nautical Jar Light. Original air date, May 19th.
Beachy Nautical Jar. It took me a while to get the sticky residue left from the label. Pot scrubber, hot water, and soap didn't do it. So plan B was some wet sanding, and a light sanding at that. And that worked. Okay, so to start things off, we're going to give the jar a blue tint, but we're not going to paint it with paint. We're going to mix up some colored Mod Podge. This is my own concoction of watered down glue with a couple drops of food color until I like the color. I think I did 2 drops of blue and 1 drop of green. Wasn't very much at all. And I'm just going to put on the first coat. Try and make sure it's colored evenly, but it's pretty hard with a sticky substance like this. So I did do 2 coats, but I had to make sure it was like totally dry before starting the second. So I did come in with my heat gun, and then I actually walked away from it and let it dry under the ceiling fan for a while.
I came back in, and this time I'm doing it upside down so I can get the bottom tinted as well. And now it doesn't look like such a hot mess. It sort of evens out the color. And come back in with the heat gun. And I was much happier with how it looked. I'm going to grab these lights fairy lights that I got from Amazon. And they take 3 AA batteries. But I really like that I can change out the batteries. And so the plan was for this to be a shell holder. So I put in a few shells and then pushed some more lights and put in a few shells, pushed some more lights in. And then the plan was just to hold to set the battery pack behind the jar, like to make a front and back. However, you'll see in the final reveal that I actually like it without the shells, with just the fairy lights. And I didn't know I would. But there's the jute twine that I use. It's actually the kind you get in the automotive division or automotive part of Dollar Tree. Now I'm going to put up some directions so my voiceover isn't all over the place. So 1, cut your first piece of jute 4 times the height of the jar. 2, use that to cut the rest of your jute pieces. I did 16. You could do 8 or 12 as long as it's an even number. 3, fold your jute pieces in half, then bring the loop or middle over the holding piece. Think over, under, pull the tails through. I like to use my macrame board, but you can just as easily keep it tied to your desk or use a piece of cork board. So there you see over, under, pull the tails through. You can slow this down or stop it if you want to look at it. I just wanted to show it to you a few times. There's the middle, there's a loop, over, under, pull the tails through. And then you can even them out on the holding rope. Number 5, once all your pieces are on the holding rope, attach it to the top of the jar with just a simple double knot. See how I just pulled it around, tied the double knot, and then just trim the ends. And then to get started, grab 2 double pieces, setting aside the single outside pieces on the left and right on each side, and then tie a single knot with those remaining middle 2 pieces. And that's your first knot. And then go left or right, it doesn't matter, and grab 1 single piece, and then go to your left and grab another single piece. So you'll keep working with the single pieces. You can go to the left or you can go to the right as long as you do the same for the whole row. And then just go row by row, tying knots with the single pieces. And you'll find it makes little diamond shapes, and you don't even have to try. As long as you just pull the single piece to the side and tie it with that next piece, it'll just automatically make your little diamond pieces. And then you'll just do this row by row by row until you are almost at the very bottom of the jar. And then you just kind of want to even it out and then trim the ends. I just set mine on a little Dollar Tree crate so I could get at them and so you could see. And then I'm just going to take a length of rope and I'm going to pull it through the little bottom of the diamonds. And again, you can do under, over, through, or over, under, through. And just keep doing that until you've gone all the way around. And then just like at the top, when you meet up with the beginning, you're going to tie a double knot. And you want to try and like tug down the pieces so you have them as much on the bottom as possible. And mine actually could have come down a little bit more, but I was still happy with how he came out. So I tied a double knot, trimmed those pieces, and then this is a scary thing for me. I tried it off camera to make sure it didn't damage the Mod Podge finish there, the blue tint, and it didn't. So I went ahead and got rid of all the fuzzies. It made those diamond shapes much more defined, and I'll give you some different looks during the final reveal.
Project number 16, my first ever bee craft. The original air date was May 8th.
3 bee fridge magnets. I created these using wood half beads and wood beads, paint, and some magnets. That's the original bottom left. Robin McIntosh is the creator, though it was posted on Pinterest by somebody else. I'll have the link to her website in my description box down below. For now, I'm going to paint the little heads black and the bodies in yellow. I used an acrylic paint yellow, but it was kind of bright, so I came back in with some chalk paint in like a vintage yellow. I set those aside. You'll see I painted some popsicle sticks. I end up not using those. I thought I needed them for the back of the bee, but it turns out just the body and the little head was fine, and the magnets fit perfectly on the back of the body. I trimmed some paper clips for the little bee antenna, and I just folded them and then rounded the tips because I like the way that looks. I have this buffalo check ribbon. It's narrow. As soon as I saw the bee in the picture, I knew I could recreate it using this ribbon. I cut 3 lengths of ribbon that were a size that I liked when I held it up to the bee body. And it was just a matter of liking the proportions. I made 3 loops exactly the same length and glued them with some hot glue. And then I did the exact same thing for 3 more lengths that were just a little bit bigger than the first ones. I folded them and secured them with hot glue like you see here. And then I'm going to pinch these 2 lengths together, so the shorter length and the longer length, to make the wings, the bee wings. So I pinched them together and kind of like tried to center them. And then when I liked how it looked, I grabbed some of my floral wire and I secured the 2 loops with some floral wire. You could probably use, jute twine or chenille stem or something, but I thought floral wire would work best because I'm going to be gluing them all together at the end anyway, so I didn't want a whole heap of glue sticking out all over the place. So I secured all 3 with some of this floral wire and trimmed the ends. And you'll see I painted those popsicle sticks, but you can ignore them because, again, they weren't used. I held up the little wings to the bee body there, and I liked how that looked. It looked good with the little bee head, so I'm going to go ahead and glue these all together. I put some hot glue on the bee body and glue the wings to that. And I did the wings the way it was in the picture. Then I took the bee antenna and put a dab of glue on it. And then I set the little bee head on top. Waited for the glue to set. Then I put a dab of glue on the wings and put the little bee head on top of that. And I just held it for a little bit and it was perfect. Like I wasn't surprised, but I was just really happy that it came out the way I had it in my head. And I did the exact same thing with all 3. And then I came in with my little Funsel's chalk marker in black. And I do 3 stripes just like the original. And I must have chose a size that was pretty much the same as the original because 3 stripes fit perfect. Love the way these turned out. I'm putting the magnets on the back. They fit perfect. And there you have it, 3B fridge magnets, and I will give you a closer look at the final reveal.
Project number 15, Sun, Sea, Sand. Original air date April 30th.
The Sand and Me. So we have wood glue, chalk paint, cricket words, and this old Easter sign. And amazingly, I'm going to put these 4 things together to create a very unique, cool, summery, beachy decor. I was going to say wall leaner. I guess it's a leaner too. Okay, so I'm taking the sign and I'm going to score it into, I believe it's a 5x7 shape. I usually go by what my Cricut Joy is. My Cricut Joy, I think, is 4.5. So I like to keep my words, that wide. I'm just using an old utility knife here to score it, and then it just pops apart, and you sand down the edges. Now this is the squared out that I got at Habitat for Humanity Restore, and I'm just drawing a line that's the length, and then I drew a line in to show the angle and as a guide for the saw, but it's actually the box is going to do the angle for you. You really don't have to worry about it. Just put that random line in as a guide just to remind you, and then just cut on it and the saw does everything for you. It does kind of splinter and everything, so you do need to sand it afterwards, which you saw me doing there. Then I'm taking my favorite blue chalk paint, and I'm doing like a dry brush or a distress, if you want to call it. It's kind of just making the blue more interesting. I did this once before and I really liked how it turned out. I'm actually using the chippy brush both flat and on the edge to get the look I want. And then it was a wee bit dark, so I did go back with some sanding paper and sand it down. That kind of softened it and lightened it. My Cricut words. So the Sand and Me was some words I saw another creator using, and I'm like, that's kind of cool. I like that, but what about sun? What about sea? So in my head, I had the words, the sun, the sea, the sand, and me. And I thought, that's like really cool. I wonder if I saw that in a poem or something. So I looked it up, and it wasn't a poem. It wasn't copyright. There was a lot of different variations with those particular words, but none with the 4 words I chose. So I was happy to go ahead and create something. And again, I struggle still with my Cricut decals or my Cricut words or letters. But I might change the supplies I'm using. I have a feeling that might be my issue. I'm using Cricut permanent vinyl and I believe it's HTV transfer tape. But I like how it looks, so I power on through, and I'm just doing some quick measurements to make sure it doesn't look wonky when I put the frame on. And for me, this is the easiest way to do the frame. I actually measured it to do this way. So I got those words on there, and I think there was a few single letters I had to put on. And then I am going to put my homemade Mod Podge on there to, I worked hard enough getting those dang letters on there. I'm going to make sure they stay. So I keep going over it, mostly just to smooth out the brush strokes. So that's why I keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I was just trying to create a nice, even look. And then I set aside to dry and worked on the frame. So we did a little bit of sanding just to, I guess, smooth it up, vintage it up, just to give it the look that I want. And then I decided, too plain, too boring. We need to do something here. I just purchased some molds and stamps and everything from Temu. So I'm using one of the new stamps and the new stamp pad in blue. I got black and blue, and the blue is so close to what I'm using, I just couldn't resist. And I think this stamp is, I want to say that it's like a flower or a butterfly and some letters. But what I did is I used one part of the stamp on one corner and then the another part of the stamp on the bottom corner, so it wasn't exactly the same. And I thought it came out pretty cool. I liked how it looked, you know. It gave me that sort of cool, vintagey, semi-professional look. Okay, now to get the frame on there, I'm just going to use my 2-glue method. And my glues are Elmer's wood glue, which I apply with a paintbrush, and then just some hot glue. And I try to make sure that they don't mix together. I brush on the hot glue, and then I put I brush on the wood glue, and then I put the hot glue in between those spots. And I really like doing it this way. You get such a nice high-end look of having a framed project, but without, you know, having to create something difficult. So just being able to glue it on the blank or the base. So I'm just like totally tickled with how this is coming out, but needs a little bit more. I clean up the corners with some of this caulk that I finally invested in. I got some spackle stuff too, but the caulk seemed easier because I could squeeze it down in between. And I figured it also kind of would act as a little bit of a glue. All right, using burnt umber acrylic paint, I'm just going to paint that on with a very dry brush on the frame. And then, what did they say, extra or more? We needed more, so I took out a few shells, and don't worry about gluing right on the edges, because if you glue on the inside part, that glue will settle into place when you put it down. So I'm liking how this looks. I'm just so tickled. Creating something out of nothing is just such a great feeling. I hope you guys will try something like this. I'm going to give you a better look in the final reveal.
Project number 14, Coastal Painted Jar, original air date April 9th.
Nautical Jar. The next two projects are inspired by Corey from Crafted by Corey. Got this cute little jar from the Shore Living line from Dollar Tree. I really like the handle on it, and I'm going to keep the handle, but for the moment I'm going to take it off so I can do the painting and everything. So I gave the whole jar a good thick coat of white chalk paint, and then I went back and sort of filled in where parts of the blue were still showing through. And then I also did a little bit more inside because I wasn't sure how much of the inside was going to show. So I did that. At some point I decided I was going to put some little Dollar Tree lavenders in there. So at the end I put in a sponge and flowers, and I didn't catch that on video, but you'll see it in the final reveal. For now, I found that I could follow the little bumps on the jar, and that helped me keep a straight line all the way across. So that was kind of nice. I didn't have to worry about taping it off or anything. And I just took my time. It seems like such a small amount to paint, but I really was very careful about filling it all in and making sure no white was popping through, because the nature of that design, you know, there'd be parts where it bumped up that wouldn't have been covered all the way. So once everything was dry, I returned the metal part to the top lip of the jar. But before I put the handle on, I wanted to wrap it in twine. And I just did that by tying a single knot on the bottom there, and then a small bead of glue at the beginning, and maybe a couple small ones on the way, but another one on the other side after it's been wrapped. And that's pretty much it. I popped in those flowers, and I will give you a better look at the final reveal.
Project number 13, Breathe Cutting Board, original air date March 17th.
Just keep breathing. Love that saying. This is a Chocolate craft using Dollar Tree bamboo cutting board and the dry erase easel there. This is the most recent Chocolate. And when I saw the saying, I knew I just had to use it right away. But I did want to show you these. I purchased a bundle of stencils off of eBay. I paid about $40 and got 20 stencils. I didn't get any packets or ink or anything, but oh my gosh, what a deal. I just had to go for it. So just keep breathing. It's going to be on the top, so top and center, because I want it to be like the focal point. I mean, when life gets to be too much for you, you just breathe, right? You just breathe. So just keep breathing. So it took me a while here. I'm honestly just going through all the packets that I saved and trying to figure out, what to use where. Chocolate gave me 3 colors, but no green, and there were leaves, and I really wanted the leaves to be green. So I started going through my little stash of saved packets. I needed them all, made sure they were all good to go, that they weren't too thick. And then took a deep breath and dove in. So first things first, we have to take the plastic off the cutting board, and then I grab my white wax and I just start with the thick coat and just keep rubbing, and I sort of rub it all over. Like, I don't concentrate on one spot at a time. Like, I go over it, and then I go over it again and go over it again until I'm happy. Now, the best way to get the words on the top of the cutting board is to trim them off. Even though they weren't meant to be trimmed off, it's the only way I could think of to just get it on there and have it be easy and have it be clean. So I ran my finger over just where the words are. I didn't try and stick down the whole thing. I invested in 2 tubs of Chocolate paste, a black and a white, and then the rest of everything I use is in the packets. And oh my goodness, I just ran over this a couple times with the little mini squeegee, and look at that. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Okay. Now, don't let the fact that your blank or your piece of wood or sign or whatever is not the same size as the stencil, because you can just sort of play around with it. And this is how I decided I wanted mine to be. And I went ahead and taped it. And that's just so I wouldn't rub the paste over some of the other spots that were pretty darn close to where I did want to rub the paste. So I chose pesto for the leaves, and I actually saved it from a previous Chocolate package. The color I use for the stems is camel. I don't remember what I finally chose for the flowers. Here I am. I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta lift this up. I can't wait I can't let the paste dry in the stencil. And also, it gives me a good idea of how the stencil and the paste are reacting. And I know, do I want it thicker? Do I want it thinner? That sort of thing. So there's this pretty color. It's one of the colors they gave me. I just can't think of the name of it. And then I was like, that's actually a little butterfly there. It's hard to see. But I'm like, I want the butterfly to be a different color. And I saved some teal, but then I was like, I could not get it out. And I played with it, and I rubbed at it and squeezed it, and finally got the smallest little piece out that I was able to rub over the butterfly. And there's the reveal. The pesto came out kind of dark. If I had to do it again, I wouldn't rub so much in there. I went ahead and rinsed out the stencils and then came back and sprayed that cutting board with that spray that I showed you. And then I'm just going to glue these together. This is sort of like a dry erase easel, and I put some wood glue and some super glue on it. And then I adhered them together, and then I sort of played around with the placement because it was crooked on the back there for a second. So the nice thing about wood glue and super glue is you can move it around a little bit before it starts sticking for good. So that looks good, yeah. And I have my laundry clips here, and you guys are going to get a better look at this during the final reveal. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous.
Project number 12, Blessed Cutting Board. Original air date March 17th.
Blessed board. We have the Dollar Tree burlap and lace ribbon, Dollar Tree jot glue sticks, and the Dollar Tree 2022 Farmhouse calendar. I chose the Blessed. I think it's the April month. I liked the colors, and I didn't even realize it was yellow hearts in scale, which makes it even cuter. So there's a few different ways you can affix the paper to this cutting board shaped sign. I'm using the glue sticks. I make sure to get the edges and the corners first, and then I fill it in. It'll stay damp for a little bit if you need to reposition it, which I do. But after 2 or 3 times, I noticed the glue starting to dry. See, there's the first time. But I'll do it a few times. But then I noticed the glue starting to dry, and I'm like, okay, I need to hurry up and be happy with this, because I don't feel like redoing the glue. And I just use my hand and also a little bit of paper towel to rub down the paper, make sure there was no wrinkles or bubbles or anything. Then I took some sandpaper and just did all the edges and make it look like it was meant to be there. And then I chose to paint in the top of the cutting board sign, even though it wasn't the same color as the paper. It was close, and I do go in before the final reveal and distress it a little bit to make it look closer in color to the paper. All right, I actually dried that with my heat gun. It only took a couple minutes. Now I chose some nice bright green boxwood, these pretty yellow flowers, and then I decide I need a little bit more, and I spied some white, I think it was dogwood. And so I snagged that up. So basically 2 sprigs, 2 branches of each, 2 of the dogwood, 2 of the white, and 2 of the yellow. Pretty easy embellishment here. Once I have it close enough together, I'm taking some floral wire. I just trimmed off, hang on, get that back in there. I just trimmed off just a length of floral wire and wrapped it around the middle. And then I decided I was going to use a length of this jute rope to tie it onto the board sign, cutting board sign. And so I just did one of those little loop knots, or however you want to call it. Lark's head knot. And then I glued it on the back. You notice I had to take off the life word there to get it glued. And also at some point there, actually right now, you'll notice there's a rope on the border because it was too plain for me. And I kept cutting out the part where I do the rope. And after the 3rd try, I was just like, ugh, I'll just talk about it. So this is me talking about it. And it was pretty easy. I just did hot glue and did it in small pieces until I was all the way around. And now I'm using the burlap and lace ribbon. I made the awareness shape, scrunched it together. Now I'm tying it, wrapping the twine around a few times, tying it in the back, tying it nice and tight. And also put a length of leftover ribbon in the middle to cover up the twine. And I really like it like that. And I used to do it a lot, and not so much lately, but Tammy from Happiness Created does it a lot too. And it looks great. So here I'm just kind of zhuzhing the embellishments here. I'm going to glue down a few pieces of the leaves and stuff, and then bend it so it cascades over the edges, and got that rope on top there for embellishment as well as to hang it up, and you'll get a better look during the final reveal.
Project number 11, Sleeping Bunny Pizza Pan Wall Hanger. The original air date is March 6th.
Pizza Pan Bunny. We're going to use this 2022 calendar image for March. We have nautical rope, pink ribbons, pizza pan. The pan and the calendar came from Dollar Tree, and I don't remember where the ribbon came from Amazon probably. Always thought that was such a sweet image, and I finally get to use it. I made sure the pizza pan was nice and clean. You can use a baby wipe or some rubbing alcohol and paper towel. Now, I used Mod Podge earlier in this video and didn't put the top back on, and wow, it got super, super thick just over a day or two, and I ended up not being able to use it. Here I'm cutting out a background out of Dollar Tree wallpaper. I decided I wasn't in the mood for painting this day, and so it was pretty easy to trim the wallpaper for the shape of the pizza pan, because I know I'm going to go back in afterwards with the nautical rope, and that's going to hide any imperfections in the cut. Took the bunny image and just used my fingernail to mark where it needed to be trimmed. And when I put it down, I thought, wow, it's covering up like the whole background. After I just, went through putting the background on there, and I liked the background and wanted to show. So I did a bit of a fussy cut on the bunny image, and this way you could see more of the background, and I was happier with it. Here I am trying to get some Mod Podge out, and it's not coming out. I actually put a brush in it, and the brush just stood in the sludge. So plan B was to use this school glue, clear glue, but just on the outside edges, because I really wasn't sure what it was going to do. And it did wrinkle up a bit, and I rubbed it with some no, not paper towel. I think I used a cloth, just like an old rag. And I actually went in off camera as well and tried ironing it to get some of the wrinkles out. So there's a few wrinkles in there, but it's not too bad, all things considered. I'm going ahead and making a bow using the 2 loops and cinching them together with the zip tie. And then I'm taking the other ribbon, making the awareness shape, cinching it together, and using another zip tie. And then I just put that second bow on top of the 2 loops there, and I position it and fluff it and trim it. Then I use some hot glue to apply a piece of ribbon around the middle to hide the zip ties. And then I actually came in with hot glue and attached that. Then I flipped it over, and I used super glue and hot glue on a piece of nautical rope that I chose to use as a hanging rope. And then after I did that, I came back in again, which I usually do, with some more hot glue and a little piece of ribbon. You could use a piece of fabric, a piece of tape, a piece of paper, piece of canvas, something just to help hold it down. Now, I thought it needed a little bit more, and rather than make a swag out of my perfectly fine faux florals, I went through my stash of already used florals, and since the stems are really short, what I did was the first floral, I lifted the bow and glued it under the bow, and then the next floral, I lifted the floral and glued it under that floral. So everything got glued underneath something, so it wasn't totally apparent that it was a bunch of hodgepodge pieces. And then, did you know that you could curl up those onion grass pieces? I just used my fingernail, and curled it like you would curl curling ribbon, fluffing the bow, and a better look at the final reveal.
Project number 10 is this Farm Fresh egg basket. Original air date March 1st.
Farm Fresh eggs in a basket. I'm using some chalk couture to spell the word farm fresh. Also Dollar Tree eggs from last year, some chalk couture paste, and a piece of a basket that I purchased many, many years ago. So this is how I chose to paint my eggs to dull down the color. You could also put them in a carton and paint the top, let it dry, paint the bottom. Or you could even make a hole in the bottom with a glue gun nozzle and then put them on a skewer and paint them like that. But this worked. It was a little messy, but the tape held it down enough that I didn't get my fingerprints all over them. So I started drying them, and then I thought, I can do other things while they dry, so let's just give them some time. And so I picked up the whole piece of parchment paper and laid it aside. Now I'm going to trim out the chalk couture. Oh, there's Kitty again. This is the second time. He never does that. I guess he really wanted Mama's attention. But yes, these chalk couture stencils are made to be trimmed, and they trim easily. And now I'm preparing the little garden sign. I'm fixing up the back of it. I got the hanging ribbon off, and I was really hoping this was going to go off without a hitch. And at first I wasn't too sure, but then ta-da! It came off with very little adhesive on the back. I give it a quick little sand, and it was ready for some paint. I wanted a rustic coat, so I just made kind of watery concoction with some chalk couture white paste and a little bit of water. And then I proceeded to cover the back of the sign. And again, it's just what I call a rustic coat. So I used a medium-sized paintbrush. And I give it a few coats, and then I dried it with my heat dryer or my heat gun. Now I'm going to go over it with this wax, this white wax. I actually got it for painting garden statues, but it works well with chalk couture because you want that waxy background. And chalk couture sells its own clear paste, but I had the white paste, so I use that. First time using this transfer, so we do need to fuzz it. I just use a hand towel here, and I fuzz it twice. Then I place it. I took a little while to make sure it was in a good place, and then used some tape just to ensure it didn't move. And I mean, the word farm came out so perfect. I actually had to rough it up afterwards to match the word fresh that didn't come out so perfect. And that's just because I was sort of hodgepodging it, and this is one of the older stencils, you can't see through it, and so the letters weren't super straight like the word farm. But I did my best here, and I noticed that when you go over it a second time, you definitely don't get the full darkness that you did previous. So it definitely could have benefited from washing in between, but I was okay with it because I want it to be a rustic sign anyway. Now I picked up the eggs in the middle like that, you see, and I have like one finger and my thumb inside to hold it as I dab some white paint. Again, white paint made from the chalk couture white paste and a little bit of water. Now I had one of those situations where the camera was off and it should be on, and on when it should be off. So I'm going to show you real quick what I did that didn't get recorded. And I have this big roll of chicken wire, and I just use my jewelry wire cutter, to trim off a piece of the chicken wire. And then I used a pair of jewelry pliers to bend it like that, so it made a little hook, and then I hooked that onto the frame of the basket. I folded it to get it to the size and shape of the roundness of the basket, and then I used my trimmers again to trim off the extra and bent everything into the basket. The eggs, I just kind of strategically placed them so you couldn't see parts that were scratched or weren't totally covered with white, and that came out really well. And then the sign, I actually chalked on some decoration at the top to make it look a little better. Final look at the final reveal.
Project number 9, Every Bunny Welcome sign. Original air date February 16th. Every Bunny Welcome wall hanger. We're using some napkins I got off eBay. I have this piece of a cupboard that I got at the Habitat for Humanity Restore. It was only $2. And then this little bunny was part of a 2-pack from Dollar Tree. And then I traced the bunny on cardboard and set it aside. So if I want to use the shape again, I can just cut it out using the template. I'm also going to be using some Mod Podge. I went ahead and painted the bunny. I believe that's oatmeal. Oh, I guess I'm showing you the cupboard again. Sorry about that. So the bunny is painted oatmeal because I thought I ordered white paint, and when it came, it was Castle, which is light gray. And when I checked, I did in fact order Castle chalk paint. So I accidentally navigated away from the white paint purchase page and purchased the gray. So I did do the Every Bunny Welcome on my Cricut, and there I was making sure that the bunny and the words fit, and they do, because I measured it beforehand. I wish the words were a tiny bit bigger. I did measure it, but I'm always worried it's going to be too big. But I think at this point I need to worry about it being too small. So it took me a little bit to get this transfer tape on. The grid helps, so if it went down and stuck but the grid wasn't even, then I took it off and tried it again. And then of course it takes me a while to get the backing off. I flip it upside down and pull the backing off the transfer tape, and that's supposed to be the easiest way of doing it. I went ahead and set that off to the side while I applied some Mod Podge to the bunny. Now the napkin is kind of, I don't want to say it's dark, but it's got a lot of color on it. So I don't think the color of the bunny is going to factor in as far as the color of the napkin goes in the finished product. So I'm going to head and just spraying the words with the finishing spray. And then I took the bunny and put it on my tripod, my ring light, got it underneath the ceiling fan and got it dried off. So once it was dried off, I separated the floral part of the napkin from the backing, and I think there was actually 2 extra plies, so 3 plies altogether. And then my favorite thing to do, I am going to use my Hippo heat press and iron the napkin onto the Mod Podged bunny shape. We do that because it reactivates something. And I love this Hippo heat press. It fits in my hand really well. I can control it well. And it's super, it has 3 super hot settings. Afterwards, I just kind of rip the napkin away and then use some sandpaper to get it even with the edge. And I love how that turns out. I will do that like 99.9% of the time. However, the other 0.1% I will burn, just like you see here. And I did that because of the ears.
I didn't feel like messing around with the ears, so I just set them on fire. And it came out perfect. I sanded it a little bit, but not much. Now I'm sanding that cupboard front, which, you know, is like my blank, my white blank. And I sanded a little bit on the back of the bunny as well, so they'll stick together. I'm using some wood glue. It'll be wood glue and hot glue. Long-term hold and immediate hold. And guys, this is so easy. A Dollar Tree bunny, a napkin, and a piece of a cupboard from the Habitat for Humanity store. I got these ribbons from Dollar Tree just because they were new and they had words, and I'd never tried ribbons like that before. So I'm going to put one up near the bunny's ears, and there we have it, a better look at the final reveal.
Project number 8 is this Home Sweet Home sign, original air date February 9th.
Home Sweet Home Shelf Sitter. So we're starting with one of these chalkboard house shapes, a Home Sweet Home cricket cutout, Dollar Tree ribbon and twine, and my blue and green chalk paint. So to start things off, there's Ellie's version on the bottom left there. And I'm going to make mine a different color, so I have to switch things up a little bit. So I'm going to do like a teal color, and then a green on top of that for the print. She did lavender and white, so I'm doing like aqua and green. So I noticed she did not paint her frame part of the house, so I taped mine up and chose not to paint or stain it. I did, however, mix together some green and blue chalk paint, and I painted the chalkboard part of the house twice, letting it dry in between, and then giving it a finishing spray before we moved on to the cricket quartz. So drying, just to show you how easy it is. Okay, then Ellie put a twine bow on top of her ribbon bow, so I chose to do that as well. Made the awareness shape, scrunched it together, and then wrapped the twine through the middle of the awareness shape bow. After I had that one together, I took the twine and wrapped it around my hand, and then affixed the two bows together with some hot glue. And it'll be together in just a minute here. Oh, I put a little ribbon in the middle. I do that sometimes. Tammy from Happiness Create does that a lot. She's like the expert at it. But I put that on there just because it was going to be easier to get the twine bow on top. And finally, they're together. It was meant to be. Had the bow ready. When I had the bow ready, I pulled the painter's tape off the frame edges, or frame, however you want to call it. And then I did a pretty short trim on the bow. Did a dry fit. Decided to put my cricket words right at the very bottom. And even though I chose to lower the pressure on my Cricut Joy, I still had trouble getting my words on the transfer tape. However, my transfer tape has a grid on it, which I really like. So it was easy to get it centered. You see me checking with the ruler there and realizing I can just line up the grid. At this point, I just need to take my Cricut tool or Dollar Tree Cricut tool and then I'm going to peel back the transfer tape. I'm actually almost finished here. Well, I thought I was almost finished. There's the spray. I did it before the words and after the words, and I thought I was finished here. I zoomed in for a close-up, and then when I looked back at Ellie's inspiration piece, I realized she had put her bow on the actual house at the top, but not actually on the frame. So I did go ahead and change that up, and I like it better. But what do you think? Should I have just left it? Either way, I think it looks great. Better look, final review.
Project number 7 is this Hello Spring shelf sitter. Original air date February 5th.
This jar and flowers project is a pumpkin transformation. A Dollar Tree drawer from a wood cube. A Dollar Tree pumpkin, a little pumpkin shelf sitter there. A Dollar Tree disposable cookie tin, and some Happy Spring, I think it says, that I cut out on my Cricut. Or Hello Spring. So again, I have to come in and get this price sticker off, and this one gave me a little bit more grief than usual. And after doing what I usually do, there's still a lot of adhesive on there, so I did go in and warm it up and wet sand it again, and then that helped. I created what I thought was a beautiful oatmeal and blue color. But as it turns out, it was just a little bit too dark for my Cricut words, but I don't realize that at first. So I am blissfully unaware as I enjoy looking at the color of the pumpkin, which is now a jar. All right. So I'm creating the little metal top for the jar, and I just trimmed it out from the disposable cookie tin, and rubbed out the bumpiness just using a little rag, a dry rag. And then this is Dollar Tree super glue. I do a pretty healthy dose. Press it down firmly and then push it down on the sides because of the shape of the pumpkin. You can see it a little better there now. The wood cube is a nice color. It's fine. It's the oatmeal color. I glue down the floral foam, and I'm about to do the words, and then I'm like, oh, no, there's not enough contrast. You can hardly see the sentiment. This is not good. No, this is not going to do. So you stay there. It's like I'm talking to the words. You stay there, and I'm going to fix this. So I had the oatmeal out still, and I just kind of took a raggedy little brush and got some lighter color on there. I was kind of wanting a little bit more of that blue to show through, so I wasn't really even about the coat. Set that aside and worked on the florals. I needed pretty long stems for this, longer than usual because they have to peek out from behind the little faux jar there that we've created. So after doing a dry fit, I realized I need a little bit more height, and I grabbed some tumbling tower blocks and just hot glue them in such a way to get the most height from just the 2 blocks there. And I paint them the same color as the little wood cube. Then I take some wood glue and hot glue. Oh wait, before I do that, I'm doing the words, and success. It looks wonderful. A great contrast, and the two colors look really pretty together. I had a lot of trouble getting those words on that transfer tape. I forgot to change the pressure because the regular pressure on my machine is just goes too deep into the paper, and normally I would do less pressure, or else it takes me a little bit longer to get it on the transfer tape as it did here. I had that one little flower petal there that I had to work on. I shouldn't have bothered with it, but I did. Now here's the glue. Wood glue on the sides, and I put some hot glue top and bottom, and then I'm going to stand up the faux jar and press the two pieces together and make sure everything's straight. I just gotta slide it over just a little bit there, I decide. Okay, working on the florals now. I start in the middle, work my way out. I usually like to do the same left to right, front to back. And I've heard other creators talk about that as well. I love the choice of pink. I went for pink and then I just chose a whole bunch of different pink ones. And I chose the daisies because I'm trying to make it like wildflowers, because it reminds me of picking them as kids and then coming home with them and putting them in a jar. So pop in some greenery there just to balance things out, and you'll get a good look at this at the final reveal.
Project number 6 is this family sign recreation, original air date February 3rd.
Target wall decor dupe. This one is a family sign. It's very rustic, but I very much like it. These are some of the supplies I'll be using. And there's the Target version in the bottom left corner there. You'll see they used cursive, so although I considered using the box, the house shapes with family, I decided to stay with the cursive. This is a box that I made quite a while ago for another project that I abandoned. It's basically an 8x10 canvas frame with the canvas pulled off and then some paint stir sticks cut to size. And if you see on the back, it's definitely not perfect, but that's the nice thing about this kind of frame. It doesn't have to be. I used some watered down burnt umber to get a brown color on. I want to paint everything brown and then paint a couple other colors on top of it to get the rustic treatment. And that one stick in the middle had a really rough outside. Like all the other ones were smooth and that one was rough for some reason. So I was pretty careful about how much paint I put onto it because I didn't want to mess up the colors. So after the brown dried, and I did give a little help with my heat gun, I took just a plain, like I think it calls it robin's egg blue, but just watered it down and painted it over what I already had there. And the surface of the sticks is really slick, so I'm not sure if I maybe sprayed it in the past or if that's how those sticks are, because those last thing of sticks that I got were kind of all over the place. It wasn't the best quality. But the color is coming out pretty good. It's coming out the way I want it. So I wanted blue, brown, white. I was going to do 2 at a time. Then I decided I liked it better this way. So you'll see I'm helping the white along by wiping it with a baby wipe. And then this paint, you'll see I'm like right in the very, very bottom, like literally touching plastic when I'm putting my brush in there. For whatever reason, I decided to use that precious little paint I had and paint the frame in that much brighter white. And I'm not really sure because I'll end up changing it in a minute. I like to paint my metal words with Pouncer or Dabber, however you want to call it. And after the initial going over, I just keep going back and pouncing on the parts that I can see the silver still. And I just keep doing this until it's as white as I like it to be. And I did come in with my heat gun and make sure it was dry before I handled it. So here's my glues. I got Elmer's wood glue, Dollar Tree, super glue, and my hot glue gun with high temp glue sticks. And there I am, just drying it off before I handle it. Because sometimes the paint gets on the back and you don't realize, and the paint in the back is still wet, and then you start handling it and all of a sudden there's paint all over the place. So I've learned my lesson. I'm doing a dry fit here, and I knew it wasn't going to fit inside, but I didn't realize the F and the Y are totally lost in the white on white, so I realized I got to come in and dirty up the edges there of the frame, but I got to make it look more natural, so I do front, back, side to side, and then I come back in and do some more on the sides. I want it to look natural, like I want you to be able to see the word family and not realize that I worked on making sure the word pops. I'm painting on the glue here. That's the wood glue. I like applying wood glue with a paintbrush. I just get it where I want it. It's much easier and more precise. I'm using my super glue, just squeezing a little blob on each side, and then finally come in with the hot glue. And once I get that hot glue on there, I gotta work fast because metal and hot glue don't necessarily do well together, but I do like the immediate hold, so you just have to work a little quicker. So I like this, but I could use a little bit more darkness around the F and the Y there, and so I do come in and make it a little darker, and now I'm happy with how it looks, and I'll give you a better look during the final reveal.
Project number 5 is these henna style lovebirds. The original air date was January 25th.
Spring Chalk Couture birds. So there's a little stand that I got from Dollar Tree as a frame. We have the Chalk Couture single packets, Chalk Couture squeegee, Chalk Couture Scandi birds that I got on sale. I think Scandi or Scandinavian. And then, of course, these wood shapes that I got from Amazon. And I'm showing you the size of the one that I'll be using for this project. I put a base coat of clear spray paint, and now I'm going to figure out which birds are going to look best in the space provided. I was needing the teal color there because I definitely want to use that color. Teal is my favorite color in clothing and wall colors and things like that, so only natural that I would go ahead and get it from Chalk Couture. So this is the first time it's being used, so I trimmed it off the main page and fuzzed it on a microfiber cloth that I have. The teal chalk paste was nice and slippery and went on no problem. I didn't have to add water or anything like that. So I just spent a little time getting some even coverage. And I definitely need some more squeegees because I had to take a break in between and get the squeegee cleaned off. But there's our first reveal, and I love it. Absolutely love it. The color, the bird, the direction it's facing, everything. This, I think, is copper, like a copper shimmer that I got from one of the house transfer sheets. And so if you haven't guessed it already, the stencil, Chalk Couture stencil, or I guess we could call it the silkscreen stencil, silkscreen transfer, is what this project is all about. So we went from a paint stencil to the Cricut cutout, and now we're chalking. So again, it came out wonderful. I love it. I love the two colors together. It's lovely. So now I just had to figure out how to finish it off. And bows are usually a good choice for embellishment, so I decided to go with that. But this ribbon was pretty wide. I want to say maybe 1.5 inches, maybe 2. But I did go ahead and use it to make a awareness shape bow, like I usually do. Make the shape, scrunch it together with the twine, and just tie it nice and tight in the back. And then embellish the middle sometimes, but glue it on, putting glue in the back. So I do have the bow ready, but I want to get it on the stand first here. So this was just a Dollar Tree frame from the frame section, and I saw other creators using it as a stand, and I'm always thinking about how to stand things up, so I thought this was perfect. Now, I definitely mess around with this bow. I am not happy with it after I get it up there, but I do mess around with it until I get happy with it. For right now, I thought it was done, and then oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My cats were fighting. One is in timeout right now. So yes, I thought I was finished with this project, and then when I looked at it, I thought it just needs something else, more of an embellishment. And I decided on a necklace for it. So I pulled out some different sized beads and watered down some paint in colors similar to what the chalk was on the image on the birds. So this is just like, oh, look at that. I just totally lost that bead. I had to get up, go all the way around my desk, find the bead. Oh, there we go. Get some more color on it. So yeah, the blue I thought was a nice springy color, and it was a close match to the teal that's already on there. So now, similar to what you would call a dry fit when you're figuring stuff out, I was figuring out how to do the beads here. And what I did was cut off a piece of floral wire and use it like you would use a needle. So I just cut off the piece of floral wire, fold it in half, and then put the twine in the looped part of it, and then just threaded my beads on in the chosen pattern. Now, it would be nice to have my hot glue gun working right about now, but that glue gun always conks out. It's a great gun, but it always conks out. So I decided to prop the knot on the string off on the top there and then just glue it down. And now our birds have a necklace, and they are prettier. Final reveal coming up.
Project number 4 is a love wreath. It's probably the most favorite wreath I've ever done. Original air date was January 25th.
Love cutout with wreath. So some people love their cricket and some people not so much. That's what this project is about. I prepared the wood circle with some matte spray paint, and then I grabbed all the roses out of my floral stash, as well as some fillers and some greenery. So to prepare the wood circle, I'm drilling a few holes, and I will use those to attach it to the wreath. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it, no measuring here, just trying to get it at the top. I don't want to have to do it in 4 spots, so I just am trying to figure out how best to hang it. And of course, last year my favorite color was this moss green, and I still love it. And I thought it would be perfect for this project because I don't have any green vinyl left, so I'm going to use some white vinyl for my words. And I think it's going to look fantastic on this green. Now I got this garland at Target, and I was a little annoyed because it was mixed up with sales stuff. And I didn't think it was that much, but it was $5. And I almost went back, and then I'm like, It's kind of cool. I'll just go ahead and keep it. But before I started, I wanted to wrap the wreath form with burlap. This is a roll of white burlap that I purchased at Walmart a few months back, and I cut it in half lengthwise and wrapped it around the wreath form. And I'll have the size of the ribbon and the wreath form in my description box below. For now, I'm just going to spread out the garland and either use its own wire or use my floral wire. I used its own wire to get started, and I'm using the floral wire to help keep it down. I could have just left it like rolled up and just kind of like attached it to the insides. I wasn't really overthinking this. I did this in Design Space using 2 images that came up in a search in Cricut Access, or Cricut Design Space, I guess you call it. I like showing some of the vinyl work here. So I pulled away the vinyl we didn't need, attached it to the transfer sheet or transfer tape, and very, very slowly pulled off the backing. The middle word was giving me quite a hard time, and a few of the letters I actually just had to place on there like a sticker because they were just not working with the transfer tape. I don't do this very often, but I did add some Mod Podge because this is going to be outside. So I'm going to get those letters covered, and then I'll spray them again with the matte clear spray paint. So for now, it's just all about finding some order in the roses. I'm trying to do one on one side, one on the other side kind of thing, and leave a few extra in case I have to fill in some holes afterwards. I also trimmed some of the greenery and then placed it elsewhere on the wreath with some hot glue. And I used a combination of floral wire, zip ties, and hot glue. I'll probably hang it on the front door and add a couple more flowers like I usually do. So better look at the final reveal.
Project number 3 is a staying in sign. The original air date was January 18th.
Staying in. This is my first chalk couture project. So I'm showing you all the little things I got. I got the single packs and the little mini squeegee. There is a way to not use the whole single pack. If I can find the link to the video I watched about how to do that, I'll include it in the description box below. So to start things off, I'm going to paint white chalk paint over my desired blank. It's just an old piece of particle board. And then after that dries well, I'm hitting it with some white wax. And I'm just using paper towel for that. Then I have that little box there full of hearts. So I'm going to grab a few and just paint them the same color as the board, because they're kind of shiny and I want to use them later on and I don't want them to be shiny. I don't have a fuzzing mat, so I'm just using a clean t-shirt and I'm just going to fuzz it twice, I think. And I feel like that's good enough. I guess that's 3 times. The stencils are a lot more flexible than I realized. They're definitely more bendable than I thought. Here I'm just making sure that there's an even amount of space side to side and top and bottom. I want it to be as centered as I can just because of the way the stencil is. being a little bit smaller than the board. So you're supposed to knead the packets and then put them out in a little dish. But I kneaded it and put it out on squeegee. And I'm thinking, this is weird. Like, I'm really having to force the chalk. And I managed to get it all, but it took a little bit. I'm like, that just didn't seem right. So then I go on to my next color, and I've already forgotten what it is, but it was, the 3 colors were chosen by Chalk Couture for this particular transfer. So second one went fine. I kneaded it. It was nice and liquidy, much more liquidy feeling than the black. And the same with the third color. It kneaded really well, much better than the black. So I know the black is too dense right now. I need to get it more like a liquid, more squishy. And so just a little spray there of water, because they say, Chalk Couture actually says you can water down your paste sometimes because it is too dry. So, but just a really small amount. So that's what I did. Got the black on the bottom, no problem at all, and slowly pulled it off. And they advise you to pull it off from the top, not diagonally, and that's just so as not to stretch the transfer. I decided to put a little heart on top of the middle house, sort of symbolic of this is our house and we're staying in, like the wording, like the message says. And then I wanted to do borders, so you'll see I did the ribbon in the top, and then I decided I still wanted something, and I wrapped it with the twine and the hearts, but then I realized the heart in the middle wasn't going to work, so I took it off and added a finger bow, and one part of the bow covers up where I took the little heart off, and I like how that looks, and I think it ties everything together. And then I just spray it with a finishing spray. It's just like a matte finishing spray. And this is good to go. And I'll give you a good look at it during the final reveal.
Project number 2 is a love silhouette. Original air date was January 12th.
Shoeless couple silhouette. So instead of just showing you the silhouette, I thought it might be fun to show you the process of obtaining the silhouette. So this was a free image through a Google search that I uploaded to Cricut, and here I'm changing the width of it by unlocking the width and inserting the number. Now this is the cutting screen. It wants to know what kind of vinyl I have, and I don't remember, so I have to go check, and I have to have my Cricut on the counter because I don't have room on my desk. So what kind of vinyl was that again? Oh, right. Okay. Permanent. Back to my desk. And we finally get the start screen. Then I got to go and actually insert the vinyl. The machine grabs it. And it begins. Back to the desk. When it's finished, it'll let me know, and I believe it says done or something like that. So I take it out and I trim it to size, and there we go. There's our silhouette. All right, so this is a Dollar Tree little shadow box kind of thing, but it's not very deep shadow box. So I want to put some shells in it, and I'm going to have to be very careful as far as the thickness of the shells, because otherwise the glass won't go on top. So to get the writing off, it's actually not that difficult. I had to put a blade in my, this is like a paint scraper, like if you get paint on your windows or whatever, and it very easily scrapes off. Just be careful, because sometimes there's like a faint little bit of color still left there, like ghost-like color, and you do have to scrape that off as well. And once I'm done scraping, I use some rubbing alcohol to clean off the glass. So I pried that off, pulled it off, and there's a little ripped portion there, but I'm not going to let that bother me. I figure between the painting and the shells, it's not going to show up. So I'm searching for the flattest shells in pinkish colors. I'm looking for like white and pink, nothing too brown, and just pink because it's Valentine's Day. So I choose my shells, and then I check how thick they are, and if they're touching the glass or not, then I switch them out. And once I'm satisfied with my choices, I go ahead and paint the little background using white chalk paint and coral chalk paint, and just like a brush full of coral mixed up to a pretty pink. I believe I did 2 coats, waited for it to dry. Made sure that the hot glue wasn't showing, because once it's in the frame, it's in there. It's not going anywhere. You can't go back in and remove the glue if you see it. So just putting the hot glue around the edges, and then when you set it down, it drips down a little bit and gives it a good hold. So I put more glue around the edge, and this is actually facing down, so the vinyl part is against the desk. This is the back, and there's the backing with the shells going in, and it's just a tiny bit not totally into the backing. So I'm going to go ahead and get good heavy bead of glue down there. And then I was like, I was worried about it. So moo, oink, cluck. I'm using some white chalk paint, Mod Podge, ribbon from Michaels that I got for 75% off, Dollar Tree vinyl, and these smaller tags from Dollar Tree because I didn't have any regular size ones that were same size and shape. So here's Jackie's version in the bottom left-hand corner, and she did hers full size, and her animals were white. Mine are going to be black. So I took these Valentine's tags, and they were 2 for $1 before the $1.25 kicked in. So one tag is going to get 2 coats of the white chalk paint, and the other tag will get the vinyl. So I'm using my big brush, and it's a nice quality brush that I got at Habitat for Humanity, drying in between coats with my heat blower. I'm not quite sure what it's called, but anyway, I did 2 coats, dried it, and then I set it aside to work on the tag with the vinyl. I used a remnant that I had left over to cover the back. It wasn't quite the same size, so like Jackie did in her video, I used different little bits and pieces to cover it up on the back and just give it a nice cohesive look. Once I finish playing around with that, I'm going to flip it over and open a new roll of Dollar Tree vinyl and cover the front. And you'll notice I was able to pull it back up and then bring it back down again. This time it covers the whole tag, and I use scissors and a pokey tool to get the hole poked through. So I did an image search on Cricut for cow, pig, chicken, and this one came up. This was the very first one, and I really liked it. The words are next to the animals instead of on top of them, like how Jackie did, and that's just because they were both in black, and I liked that. But when I tried to weld it, the space underneath the pig kept filling in black, so I ended up having to have it cut the way it jumbles it around and everything, so the words were separate. And I did have a little bit of trouble with them. You'll notice here on the moo that I ended up just putting it on like a regular sticker instead of using the transfer vinyl. So, I mean, it worked out. It took me a minute to get the M situated. It was a little bit crooked, and I just went back at it and tried not to be frustrated. This happens sometimes with me. I don't know if it's my inexperience or the letters were pretty skinny. But I liked this version of the cow, pig, chicken. And I just chose to do mine in the black because that's how I like it. And I like the white background for Farmhouse. So this is my version. I used some Dollar Tree twine to make the hanging cord. Now Jackie did a tassel on hers. I chose to do a bow, awareness shape, scrunch it up, wrap some twine around it, and then tie a knot in the back. Once I got that nice and tight, I'm going to place it where I want to, make sure it looks okay, and then I'll put a healthy dose of hot glue underneath it. Give it some firm pressure and let the glue set up, and then I'll dovetail the ends of the ribbon. Make sure it doesn't cover any of my image or words. And this project, as Jackie would say, is fabulous, and you'll get a better look at the final reveal.